Most people think the more money you make, the easier it is to buy a house. But that's not actually true. Someone making 150,000 a year can still struggle to afford a home, while someone making 80,000 might be able to buy the exact same house. And there is one rule about housing that almost nobody talks about, but it completely changes how much house you can afford. I'll explain that in a minute, but first, in this video we're going to break down the rent rule everyone follows, the bank rule that decides if you qualify for a mortgage, and the real rule that tells you what you can actually afford. One of the most common rules in personal finance is called the 30% rent rule. The idea is simple. Your rent should not exceed 30% of your gross income, meaning the money you earn before taxes. Let's look at a few examples. If you make 40,000 per year, that's about 3,000 per month before taxes. According the rule, you should spend around 1,000 a month on rent. If your salary is 80,000 per year, that's roughly 6,000 per month, meaning you could afford about 2,000 in rent. And if you earn 150,000 per year, the rule suggests you could spend about 3,500 per month on housing. The reason this rule exists is pretty simple. Housing is usually the largest monthly expense, so financial advisors recommend keeping it under control so you still have money left for everything else. That includes utilities, transportation, groceries, insurance, and other living expenses. If your housing costs stay around 30% of your income, you should theoretically still have room to save money and build financial stability. But there's one major problem with this rule, because in today's housing market, for many people, is simply doesn't work anymore. And once you see the numbers, you'll understand why. At first glance, the 3% rule sounds reasonable, but in reality, there are two major problems with it. The first problem is debt. The rule only looks at your income and rent, but it completely ignores our financial obligations. Many people today also have student loans, car payments, and credit card balances. For example, imagine someone earning 50,000 a year. That's about 4,000 per month before taxes. Following the 30% rule, they could spend around 1,200 on rent. But now let's add the real life expenses. If they also have $500 per month in debt payments, suddenly the money they have left for everything else shrinks very quickly. What seemed affordable on paper can start to feel extremely tight in practice. The second problem is the reality of today's housing market. Right now, the median rent in the US is about 1,900 per month. Meanwhile, the median income sits between roughly 38,000 and 42,000 a year. That creates a huge gap between what people are supposed to afford according to the rule and what housing actually costs in many cities. So, while the 30% rule might work in theory, for millions of people it simply isn't realistic anymore. But renting is only part of the equation because buying a home works completely differently. When it comes to buying a home, banks don't use the 30% rule. Instead, lenders follow something called 28 on 36 rule to decide whether you qualify for a mortgage. The first part is 28% rule. This means your monthly mortgage payment should not exceed 28% of your gross monthly income. For example, if you earn 40,000 a year, that's about 3,300 per month before taxes, which means your mortgage payment should be around 900 or less. You make 80,000 per year. Your monthly income is roughly 6,600, allowing for a mortgage payment of about 1,800. And someone earning 150,000 could qualify for a mortgage payment of roughly 3,500 per month. But there is a second part of this rule, the 36% rule. This means that your total monthly debt, including your mortgage, car payments, student loans, and credit cards, must stay below 36% of your gross income. If you fit within those limits, the bank will likely approve your mortgage. However, there is an important catch. Just because a bank says you qualify for a mortgage doesn't mean you can actually comfortably afford it. Banks only care about one thing, whether you can make the payments. They don't consider whether you'll still have money left to save, invest, or enjoy life. So the real question becomes, what rule actually tells you what you can truly afford? So, if the bank's rule only tells you whether you qualify for a mortgage, what rule actually tells you what you can safely afford. Many financial planners refer to something called the 3033 rule. It's a broader guideline designed to keep your finances stable even after buying a home. The first part of the rule is simple. Your total housing costs should not exceed about 30% of your gross income. This includes more than just the mortgage payment. It also covers property taxes, homeowners insurance, and other housing related costs. Using the same salary examples, if you earn 40,000 a year, you should spend roughly 1,000 per month. At 80,000 per year, it becomes about 2,000, and at 150,000, you could afford around 3,700 per month. The second part of the rule says you should have 30% of the home's purchase price saved in cash before buying. For example, if home costs 400,000, you should ideally have about 120,000 available. Why 30%? Because typically 20% goes toward the down payment, while the remaining 10% acts as a financial caution for repairs, maintenance, or unexpected costs that come with owning a home. Putting down at least 20% also helps you avoid something called PMI, or private mortgage insurance. PMI is an additional monthly fee lenders charge when your down payment is below 20%, and it doesn't build any equity in your home. Finally, the last part of the rule states that your home should cost no more than 3 times your annual income. For example, someone earning 100,000 per year should aim for a home priced around 300,000, but in today's housing market, this rule is becoming increasingly difficult to follow. Now, here is where things start to get difficult. According to recent housing data, the median home price in the US is around 467,000. If we apply the 3x income rule, that means a household would need to earn roughly 150,000 to comfortably afford an average home, and that's a very high income compared to what most people actually earn. This is one of the main reasons why many young people today struggle to buy homes, especially Gen Z and younger millennials who are just entering the workforce or still building their savings. The situation becomes even more extreme. In high-cost cities, in places like San Francisco or New York, home prices can easily reach over $1 million. To follow the traditional affordability rules in those markets, households would need to earn hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. As a result, many families today are forced to break these traditional rules. Some buyers spend far more than 3 times their income on a house, while others stretch their budgets by putting down smaller down payments or taking on larger mortgages. This growing gap between incomes levels and housing prices is one of the biggest financial challenges facing younger generations today. Because housing in major cities has become so expensive, we're already starting to see a new trend forming across the United States. More and more people are moving away from the most expensive cities and relocating to what are often called second-tier cities. These are cities that still offer strong job markets and good quality of life, but at a much lower cost of living compared to places like San Francisco or New York. Cities such as Austin, Phoenix, Charlotte, Nashville, and Boise have seen significant population growth over the past several years. Many of these areas were once considered smaller or emerging markets, but they are now becoming major destinations for workers, families, and businesses. There are a few reasons behind this shift. First, housing prices are generally lower, which makes buying a home much more realistic for people earning average salaries. Second, the rise of remote work has made it easier for people to live farther away from traditional job centers while still keeping the same job. As more people move to these areas, we are likely going to see these cities continue to grow faster than the traditional high-cost markets. In many ways, the future housing market may be defined by this shift, with affordable mid-sized cities becoming the new hotspots for home buyers. But there is one mistake that many first-time home buyers make, and it can end up costing them tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. The surprising part is that the most people don't even realize they're making this mistake until it's already too late. It often happens right at the moment when they think they're making the smartest financial decision of their lives. Understanding this one concept can completely change how you approach buying a house and potentially save you a huge amount of money. I broke this down step by step in another video, so If you want to see it, click on this video right here. Thank you for watching.